in the Sunday morning sermons. We got to chapter 8. If you've got the Bible in front of you in the pew, it is page 894. If you didn't bring one with you, it's 894. This is the English Standard Version is what I read from. This is a well-known story. It's the woman caught in adultery. Of course, you know, they came to Jesus and they wanted him, they wanted to trick him, try to get him to either say, let her go, and that would violate the law of Moses, or to impose capital punishment on her, which would have gone against the Romans who had the power of capital punishment. So it's a trick. I do want to mention at the very beginning, right here in modern versions, if you've got a modern version, anything after like 1967 or 8, you'll find a paragraph that says, or a sentence that says something like this. Here in brackets it says, the earliest manuscripts do not include 753 through 811. You might have that. If you're reading King James, that's not in there, but it is set aside. And then you see from 753 through 811, you'll see a double set of brackets in the ESV. I think the NIV says something similar to it, but I did want to address that at the outset. Some people wonder about that. What's this mean the earliest manuscripts don't have it? Well, the very earliest manuscripts that are in existence, called extant manuscripts, they do not include this, and many of them that do include it put it as an addendum either to Luke or the end of John's Gospel. And so they say, well, how did the early church perceive it? Did they consider this canon, or did they consider this the work of a later scribe? Somebody wrote this to put this in, maybe to make Jesus look better. Like you can't make him look, he's not good enough already. Did you try and make him look better in this situation? Did you want to try to address the situation of adultery? I mean, why would this be put in there? A lot of the early church fathers spoke about this, said this was a story that had been well circulated verbally in the early church, and for whatever reason was left out of the early manuscripts. And then people understood it to be a true account, and so later they put it in. And I don't know if these names mean anything to you, but some of the early writers like Augustine, he said that this account had been taken out of the early manuscripts because people, the scribes, did not want people to come away with the idea that you could get away with sin. Because, of course, at the end, the adulteress gets up and walks away, and Jesus says, I don't condemn you. And so Augustine said it was purposefully done that people thought if you showed people too much grace, that they would get the wrong idea about grace and they'd keep sinning. And that certainly does happen. I would say Augustine was onto something with that, because I've heard that in my ministry. If you preach grace too much, people will take it as a license to sin. And I've seen that. And I am going to say that people who take God's grace as a license to sin don't understand God's grace or sin. Why it was left out, I don't know. Was Augustine right? I don't know. But Jerome, who translated the Latin Vulgate, put it into the canon in its current place. And if you don't know church history and how we got the Bible, you should. This is a very important topic for every Christian to know, so you can stand up and defend from critics who read something like this and say, oh, that doesn't belong in the Bible. It does belong in the Bible. One of the hallmarks to some of these texts is people say, does it sound like Jesus? And another important question is, does it not sound like Jesus? Well, this woman caught in adultery, it certainly does sound like Jesus, and it certainly sounds like what John would have put in his gospel. John's gospel is a series of interactions with individuals showing them the grace of God. That's what John's gospel is. And there's a lot of really difficult things in John's gospel. I find it to be the most difficult gospel from my understanding, because my understanding is so limited. And so I don't actually prefer people to start with John. I would much prefer people start with Luke or Mark. But John is certainly a very powerful book, and that's why we want to go through it. And it sounds like something Jesus would do. There's no fanciful thing. It's not like at the end of it, he gets done and he tells the woman, oh, abracadabra, here's a pot of gold. Go home and, splurge on yourself. Now, that wouldn't sound like Jesus. So then it wouldn't fit. But to say what he says to this woman at the end of this account, where he says, neither do I condemn you, from now on go and sin no more, I'd say it sounds a lot like Jesus. But I think Jerome has a lot of weight. The reformers have a lot of weight. I am certainly not a Bible scholar to the degree that these ancient scholars were. And if they've included in the canon, I accept it as canonical. So I'm going to preach it that way. It's a difficult passage. I said all that as introduction. Here's introduction number 2. It's a difficult passage because it deals with a very difficult topic for the Christian. It's not difficult for the world. The world doesn't find adultery difficult at all. It's not even an issue. But the Christian, it's difficult because Christians have either committed it or had it committed against them, whether as a husband or wife or as a child, and they've seen homes wrecked by it. And so it can be a very difficult thing to read and revisit. But remember, it's like any other sin. If you were a habitual liar, if you were a habitual thief, if you were a habitual gossip, whatever you were, when you came to Christ, those past sins are behind you, and Christ has forgotten them. And if you've got that in your life, I would encourage you to move forward from that, and not to dwell in misery, but to dwell in victory. So it's difficult in that regard. It's one of those things that I know when I think of my sins in my life that I committed before I came to Christ, every time I read in the Scripture about those, it's like I'm getting a little bit of an itch again to remind me of how bad it was. And I need to remind myself Christ took that away. So let's look at this account. You know it. It's so famous. It says, they each went to their own house, but Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. He agreed that as the very act of adultery. Now the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. And they continued to ask him. He stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. And Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? And she said, No one, Lord. It's touching, isn't it? And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. Sounds like Jesus to me. What grace. Adultery in their time was punishable. Not always by death. They're reading that wrong. What they're doing is they are confusing two laws. One law is the adulterers together, man and woman both, are held accountable. If the woman is sleeping around before she's married and she's been defiled, then the woman is stoned. That's according to Moses' law. That betrothed has been defiled by another man, she's to get stoned. It doesn't say she's betrothed. In fact, it almost makes it sound like she's a married woman caught in adultery. And there's a lot of that in the Bible. And there's different kinds of adultery like that, isn't there? I mean, you look at it and you say, well, what kind of adulteress was she? Was she like Bathsheba, where she's minding her own business, taking a bath, and the king sees her down there, and he says, hey, who is that? And they're like, you know that. Bathsheba, that's Uriah's wife. He says, bring her to me. And so she comes up and David seduces her. She doesn't resist. And she falls into the bed of the king by her enamored, how she's enamored with the king. Or is she the kind of adulteress we read about, that we're warned about in Proverbs chapter 7? Do you know this one? This is one fathers teach your sons, and I would say mothers teach your daughters. It's a very important lesson here. The whole chapter. Solomon says this, my son, keep my words and treasure up my commandments with you. Keep my commandments and live. Keep my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers and write them on the tablet of my heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call insight your intimate friend, to keep you from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. So this is the adulteress that's out looking for a man. Solomon says, for at my house, the window of my house, I looked out through the lattice, and I have seen among the simple, I perceived among the youth a young man lacking sense. Passing along the street near her corner, taking the road to her house in the twilight and the evening at the time of darkness. And behold, the woman meets him, dressed as a prostitute, wily of heart. She's loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home, now in the street, now in the market, now at every corner she lies in wait. She seizes him and kisses him, and with bold face she says to him, I had to offer sacrifices, and today I've paid my vows. So now I've come out to meet you, to seek you eagerly, and I have found you. I've spread my couch with coverings, colored linens from Egyptian linen. I perfume my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love till morning, and let us delight ourselves with love, for my husband is away. He's not at home. He's gone on a long journey. He took a bag of money with him, and at full moon he'll come home. It says, with much seductive speech she persuades him, and with her smooth talk she compels him. All at once he follows her, as an ox to the slaughter, as a stag caught fast, till an arrow pierces its liver, as a bird rushes into a snare. He does not know that it will cost him his life. I taught my sons that. Did you teach your sons that? Teach your daughters that. So is she a Bathsheba woman or is she a Proverbs 7 woman? It doesn't matter. She's caught in adultery. She, as a married woman, most likely found sleeping with another man and drug out right in the very act. In those days, the adulterous woman was treated much more severely than the adulterous man, not just in Judean culture, but in Roman culture. In Roman culture, you know, the senators and the businessmen and stuff, everybody kind of winks and nods thinking, well, it's expected of these powerful men that they're so powerful, they're not just going to have one woman. They're going to have a side woman, and that's okay. But if one of their wives was found in adultery, she was defiled and would very often be dismissed from the home. And here, of course, be dismissed. In Judean culture, if you were dismissed from your home as a woman, you didn't have much recourse, especially if you were caught in the act of adultery. Probably become a prostitute, more than likely. Today, adultery is taught with such flippancy. It doesn't really matter in the world. I mean, people just don't care. So I was trying to do research. I'm not much of a researcher. I Google something and I get 10,000 hits. Any of you did that? And it's like, where do I start? So thank you, Elon Musk, for giving us AI. So I've been using AI as a research tool. I like it. And yes, I know some people think it's really powerful and it's the Antichrist. Well, I asked AI, are you the Antichrist? And it said no. And I said, that sounds exactly like something the Antichrist would say to me. And it said, I recognize that, but I'm not the Antichrist. I did have a conversation with Grok 3 about him being the Antichrist. I'm not fully convinced, but he's a good researcher. So I'll give you that. We'll give him the research. I like AI for research. I'm telling you, it is a blessing to have. Because I wondered, you know, I'm thinking about adultery. I'm thinking, how prevalent is it? How would I figure it out? What's it look like in our culture? And, you know, you try to type in something, you know, movies with adultery, you know, I mean, the songs with adultery. So I asked Grok, who's Elon Musk's AI. I'm not a fan of Elon Musk either, just so you know, but he's doing some good things with Doge. But we'll give him that. And Grok. I like Grok. All right, maybe I do like Elon Musk. I'm coming around. Little by little, I'm accepting the grifter from South Africa. No, I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing. So anyway, I asked Grok, I said, give me the top 10 movies, the top 10 grossing movies that glamorize adultery. Of course, it gives you a paragraph saying, well, glamour and all this is subjective, but it did give me these, and I printed them out, so I'm going to read them to you. And you probably know the number one movie was Titanic, $2.22 billion. Synopsis: Rose, engaged to a wealthy man, has a passionate affair with Jack, framed as a romantic rebellion in an opulent Titanic setting. The glamour is iconic romance, luxurious ship, elegant costumes make the affair aspirational. Aspirational. It's like, well, hey, you know, you're stuck in this deadbeat marriage. Maybe you can find some lowlife to sleep with on a boat that's about to hit a rock or something. I don't know, but people seem to like it. I never saw it. And I still hold that as one of my great prize things, is I never saw Titanic. So thank you very much. Second one, so a lot of you have seen Gone with the Wind, 1939. It grossed $400 million, $4.2 billion adjusted. Scarlett pursues married Ashley Wilkes with a bold charm. The glamour, lavish costumes and estates frame her pursuit as glamorous amidst war. Indecent Proposal, 1993, $266 million. A billionaire offers $1 million for a night with a wife, leading to infidelity. Glamorous Las Vegas setting will make the affair thrilling. Basic Instinct, 1992, $352 million. Catherine Trammell's affair, blur, fidelity, and danger. The glamour is erotic aesthetics and sleek backdrop make infidelity a high-stakes game. You see where I'm going with this? It doesn't make any difference. I mean, as long as you can make it look good. I'm not going to read all these synopses for you, but let me just read through it. Maybe you've seen some of these movies that glamorize adultery. The English Patient, 1996. Bridges of Madison County, 1995. Eyes Wide Shut, 1999. Unfaithful, 2002. The Graduate, 1968. And Mrs. Robinson, you know that one. Lust and Caution in 2007. I thought, wow. About music. I warn you, I'm going to tell you the name of some titles of some songs, and they're going to get stuck in your head for the rest of the day. I'm really sorry about that. But this first one, I can't get it out of my head for 3 days, so I'm really sorry. Songs that popularize adultery. Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. You remember that one? It was a big hit when I was a kid. It was the #1 in the Billboard Hot 100. It's about a secret affair with a married woman meeting at a cafe. The glamour, it's a smooth R&B and sultry vocals make it intimate and thrilling. Saving All My Love for You, Whitney Houston, 1985. Billboard #1, Billboard Hot 100. Narrator loves a married man waiting for him. Glamour, lush production romanticizes her devotion. You Make Me Wanna by Usher, 1997, #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Narrator wants to leave his partner for a new woman. The glamour is catchy R&B groove makes infidelity thrilling. Creep by TLC in 1992. My Little Secret by Escape in 1998. As Long as You Love Me by the Backstreet Boys in 1997. That was #4 on the chart. Unbreak My Heart by Toni Braxton in 1996. I'm Not the Only One by Sam Smith in 2014. Part-Time Lover by Stevie Wonder in 1985. Just read the synopsis. That was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Secret Affair with a Part-Time Lover. The glamour is upbeat rhythm, makes it fun and exciting. That's how the world sells it to us, right? #10, The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica, 98, #1 Billboard Top 100. And I thought, well, these people don't know anything about Escape, and the Backstreet Boys are way too erudite for that. So I asked for country music. The first one given me was Lionized by the Eagles. Not the Eagles, man, 1975. #8, Billboard Top Country Songs. #2, Hot 100. A woman cheats on her rich husband. Smooth melody paints it as a thrilling escape. The Thunder Rolls by Garth Brooks, 1991. That was a #1 hit. What I Call Your Name, Vince Gill, 1990, #2. Your Cheating Heart by Hank Williams, 1993. Say It Ain't So, right? We sing Hank Williams in this building. #1 Billboard country bestseller, but it warns a cheating lover of the consequences. Its timeless melody lends mythic passion. Tonight, the Heart Aching's on Me by the Dixie Chicks. You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man by Loretta Lynn. On the Other Hand by Randy Travis. This guy resists the temptation of a new lover, but it still talks about adultery. She's Acting Single and I'm Drinking Doubles by Gary Stewart. Don't know that one. Before He Cheats, Carrie Underwood, 2006. Kerosene by Miranda Lambert. Maybe for some of you country bumpkins, you like that kind of stuff. It glamorizes adultery. Well, how about famous people? Grok, tell me about the... Okay, now I didn't want a huge list, so I said, in the last 10 years, I asked Grok, give me 10 famous people caught in adultery from 2015 to 25. And the fallout. Ben Affleck, high-profile A-lister in Hollywood. Jay-Z admitted cheating on Beyonce. Kevin Hart caught cheating on his pregnant wife. These are people that you might listen to or laugh to. Tristan Thompson, I have no idea who that was. It says cheated on Khloe Kardashian and multiple women. I thought, well, that whole thing's a train wreck anyway, right? But it glorifies that worldly lifestyle. Leanne Rimes, didn't know that. Adam Levine, 2012. Ime Udoka, a Celtics basketball player. Ned Fulmer, from a YouTube channel that promotes wholesome activity. Try Guys, member affair with the producer cheating on his wife Ariel. The high profile was he's a wholesome brand and the collapse went viral. Lastly, Tom Sandoval and Robin Thicke. How about political figures? Do they cheat? Oh, let's see. 10 famous political figures caught in adultery, 1915 to 25. Warren G. Harding had a child out of wedlock. Franklin D. Roosevelt revealed posthumously that he had a long-term affair. John F. Kennedy in the 1960s, affair with Marilyn Monroe. Wilbur Mills, 1974, caught with a stripper Fanny Fox in D.C. I remember that on the news. Gary Hart, 1987, remember that one? An affair with Donna Rice on the Monkey Business yacht derailed his 1988 presidential run. Bill Clinton, 1998, an affair with Monica Lewinsky led to impeachment. Newt Gingrich, his affair led to resignation as a House Speaker. John Edwards fathered a child out of wedlock. David Vitter, 2007. Elliot Spitzer. That's enough. That's enough. That's more than enough. What's my point? My point is that we're used to adultery. And the church becomes used to adultery. And the church becomes okay with adultery. And worse than that, the church celebrates adultery. Because, you know, you look back at that stuff, if I went to my case of CDs or cassettes, I could find some of those performers in my cassette case. I know it's a while back, but still. If I went to my movie selection, well, I like Gone with the Wind. I thought it was a pretty good film. It's about adultery, right? I mean, you see people, it's Republican, it's Democrat, doesn't matter. People say, well, it's just who they are and it's okay. And how far we've come from the people coming to Jesus with a woman caught in adultery and said, we want to kill her, to whatever goes. And they're both wrong. They're both wrong. The church should never look at somebody caught in adultery and think, you're out, sister. Now, don't call yourself sister anymore. But by the same token, we shouldn't say, well, adultery is a small thing, it's no big deal, when it absolutely ruins people's lives. Especially the children whose parents get caught up in it and they divorce over it. And what a heartache that is for years and years to come after. So how do we approach it? Well, we approach it the way Jesus did. Look what Jesus did. He comes and he hears the accusation and he gets down on the ground and he starts writing something with his finger. What's he doing? He's saying, leave me out of this. Leave me out of this. This is not my business. This is your business. Leave me out of it. He knows that they're taking the wrong tack with this poor woman, that she's a married woman. She's not a woman betrothed. She hasn't been defiled as a virgin. Something here, they should both be in front of him if they want a tribunal. But the second thing is, he didn't come to give a tribunal. Remember when the two brothers came to him and they said, the one brother said, "Hey, Lord, tell my brother to share the property with me." And Jesus looks at him and says, "Who made me an arbiter between you?" Jesus didn't come to be a judge the first time. He'll come back and he'll be the judge. And boy, he's going to bring judgment the second time. He's going to really bring it. And I'll tell you what, we better make sure that our lives are right with Jesus, because he's coming back as a judge. But the first time he didn't come to judge people. He came to seek and save the lost. And that's what he's still doing, seeking and saving the lost. And when the church gets all high and mighty and decides to judge people within the church for their sins, their indiscretions, whatever it is, we're missing the way. I'm here to be your judge. I can't help but think when he got down, he wrote in there, I bet he wrote something like what God said to Adam, "For dust you are, and to dust you will return." Think about that. We're all dust, judging dust. I don't know. I don't know what he wrote. Nobody knows. It's the only thing Jesus has ever recorded writing is writing something in the dust with his finger. So he stands back up. He's there to teach. That's why he went to the temple. He's been in the garden praying that night. He goes down to the temple. It says he goes down there for the express purpose of teaching. People come to him in the morning to teach. And suddenly, here comes this crowd. Here comes this poor woman caught. Who knows? Maybe she's in a blanket. She's not in her robe. Her hair's messed. She's been abused coming into the sink. They throw her in the middle of the crowd. Here's Jesus with his students. He's in the middle of the classroom. What do? Moses said to stone her. Are you going to break Moses' law? So you know what he does is he teaches Moses' law. Yes, Moses' law says that a young woman who defiles herself before marriage should be stoned to death. But it also says that whenever somebody brings a capital crime to court and capital punishment is meted out as the punishment, which means stone them to death. That's what they did back then. They didn't have firing squads. They didn't hang them. They had stone them to death. Let the witness of the crime throw the first stone. That's it. You're the witness. You get the first stone. I'll tell you what, it makes you not want to be a false witness. Right? And little by little, these false witnesses thought, he's caught us again. He's caught us. Who wants to say, I was the witness? That's the law. But he raises the stakes. Not just let the first witness cast a stone, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. And you notice the old gray heads, they're the ones that walk away first. I get that. Now that my beard's gone gray. Because when I was younger, I might have been tempted early on in my walk to think, well, I don't have any sin left. Never been a sinner, never sinned. Let it sail. But the old heads, they look at it and say, I've sinned. And what have I done that's any better than what she's done? I mean, she's on public display now. You got to go back to town, seen as an adulteress. I mean, to me, that sounds like the punishment's already been meted out, thrown down on the ground in front of Jesus. But that's what they did. Look what it says. It says they all, one by one, walked away and left the woman standing before him. Where are they? Who's condemned you? They're all gone. Then neither do I condemn you. Just stop sinning. Stop sinning. Church, stop sinning. If somebody brought us up on charges of gossip, if somebody brought us up on charges of lying, if somebody brought a child up on charges of talking back to their parent, what would we say? I would say, stop sinning. Go your way. Live righteously. Father God, how blessed we are to have this in our Bibles, and we're grateful for men like Jerome and Augustine who kept this preserved in the canon. And Father, we trust that by its long preservation that it is true. And it certainly does sound like Jesus. Father, help us to live like Jesus and to not condone sin, to not be entertained by it anymore, to see it for what it is and to be revulsed by it, disgusted by sin. The sin in our life first, the things that we're doing and we try to hide from you that we're not successful at, or we try to hide from others and they see it just as well. I pray, Father, that we would stop doing that. And that, Father, we would not celebrate those that do sin by rewarding them with money or applause. Lord, don't let us be high and mighty, looking down on other people. But Father, just to say it is what it is. It's sin, and I cannot countenance that in my life. I don't want my children to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be reminded of it. Father, I want that out of my life. And Father, by doing that, help us to sin no more. In Jesus' name, amen.